Grab your headphones and some wine. Don't be scared now, you'll be fine. 'Cause nothing is fact and we're just talking. So come join Weird Things and Wine.
Hello and welcome to Weird Things and Wine, the show where we sip wine and talk about all things weird. My name is Tash.
And my name is Mia.
And today we will be talking about aliens.
What?
Shall we jump right into it?
Yes.
Perfect. Cheers. Recently, the universe has been estimated to be 26.7 billion years old. The observable universe is 90 billion light years across. Scientists estimate 10,000 stars for every grain of sand on Earth. So basically, the universe is really, really big. Like, incomprehensibly big. And it only stands to reason that somewhere, something is living here with us. Whatever you want to call them, aliens, extraterrestrials, non-humans, they're out there. Or maybe not. Maybe they're already here.
That's terrifying. Wow.
I'm so excited.
Just to add on what you just said also, the great and wise Bill Nye once said that we're all just specks on a speck, living amongst specks.
I want to get that tattooed.
Just one speck?
One speck. Honestly, icon. He's so smart.
He really is, though. I don't think he really believes in aliens, but I haven't seen him make a stance on what's been going on recently in the news. So maybe when he does, we'll have to add a quick little update.
We might have to, because he's like the science guy.
I mean, it's, literally his name. Yeah. Can you get more sciencey than that? I don't think so.
Did you want to do a disclaimer?
Yeah, just before we begin.
So on brand.
I mean, we gotta stick with what we know, you know? So here's our disclaimer for this episode. While some of the information we will be talking about were provided under oath, we are not endorsing any of these as facts. We are not trying to sway any viewpoints or perpetuate any attitudes and mean no disrespect to anyone directly or indirectly involved or affected. Because some of these things are kind of serious, so please do your own research and just listen to us for entertainment and find your own facts.
Please do.
Please. For our safety and yours.
I want to say that while we go through this episode, we're going to be referring to the government probably quite a bit, and I want to make it clear that we're referring mainly to the U.S. government.
Yes.
As most other governments were not involved in the hearing specifically that just happened recently.
Which is what our episode today is going to be kind of focusing on.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of important.
It's so important. It's crazy that no one's talking about it.
Yeah. It really is.
Yeah.
It kind of... So I asked the only other person that's not, you or Ash that's in my life. And they said, yeah, that's because everyone already knows. Like, we don't need you to just tell us that it's happening. Like, we want proof or nothing.
I mean, yeah, but I feel like we are closer to proof than we were before. Like, even a small step is really exciting.
That's true.
Okay, I wanted to just talk about the difference between UFO and UAP. UFO means unidentified flying object, and UAP is unidentified aerial phenomenon. Basically, both just mean like alien spaceship, but UAP is like the modern term, and UFO is kind of an outdated term that, it's kind of like stigmatized almost.
True.
Yeah. People hear like UFO and it's like, okay, little
conspiracy.
green men.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So like UAP is the professional government term for it.
Mm-hmm. One other thing on UAPs is they actually changed its definition already a little bit.
Really?
Yeah. So when NASA came out with their UAP study, which they just did in like last year, we did an episode on it. They used the definition you just said as unidentified aerial phenomena. But, let me find it here. The NDAA, I don't have who they are, but they're a section of the government. They changed it again to be unidentified anomalous phenomena.
Oh, I heard that term too, yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, I don't know. I actually have my own theory, which I will tell you later, as to why they changed it from aerial to anomalous.
Oh.
A special guest appearance from...
We have a Mr. Shadow Cat here today, as we do every podcast.
He never goes away.
He's just getting louder in his age. I love you.
It's okay. We like opinions. If you're opinionated, let us know.
He is so opinionated. Oh my gosh, I love him.
In my notes, I kind of wrote things as their acronyms because it's a little faster. So some other terms include NHI. So NHI or NHO, they stand for non-human intelligence or non-human origin.
Oh. Okay.
Origin. It's not origin. Who says that? Not me. Non-human origin. So if you end up watching anything to do with this and you hear that term, you'll hear these terms if you watch other things that are not ours, and I would recommend that you do so. Other terms include DoD, which is the Department of Defense. So that's a branch of the, as you mentioned before, the U.S. government that's meant there for the purpose of national security. AARO, AARO, stands for All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. AARO is a much better term than the full name. So this is another branch of the U.S. government. It's an office that was put in place by the Secretary of Defense. So the Secretary of Defense is the second highest level in the U.S. government. It's second only to the president. So they're like the highest department of the government that put in this arrow. Okay. Which is pretty instrumental in UAPs and NHIs.
Okay.
Yes. SCIF is another term that's important. It stands for Sensitive Compartmentalized Information Facility. So it's kind of like a padded room where information is not meant to escape from. So think of like a prison for information that's also soundproof. In a box.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, well, not a box. Sometimes, I've heard, apparently, that sometimes they range from just, like, a box that'll fit a couple people to, like, an entire floor of a building, which is just nuts. Because they also say that some of them have metal bars around the outside so that no one can break in.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know how the ventilation is in there, but it can't be good.
This will be our 25th episode, and our first episode was all about Area 51.
Oh my gosh, it's so fitting!
It's so fitting. I'm very excited. And I wanted to talk just like a little bit about aliens themselves.
Love it.
Because I love aliens. Everyone loves aliens.
Well, you might not after this, but hopefully you will.
So, some signs of aliens are UFO sightings, crop circles, cattle mutilations.
Ew, whoa. You tried to sneak that one in there real fast.
Just continuing. Abductions and implants.
How do you know if you've been abducted? Abducted? Abducted.
Yeah. The drink is hitting hard, isn't it?
I don't know.
Mia made a drink called alien goo.
Yeah.
Alien goo.
It's actually really good. It tastes like a pina colada, but it's green.
It's fun.
We just put food coloring. No, I'm kidding.
It's just a pina colada with food coloring. How do you know if you've been abducted? Good question.
Thank you. I've been wondering about that.
A lot of times people have memories or they have like flashbacks.
Oh,
you know, cause
like dreams?
Yeah, sometimes their memory gets erased, but then they have like flashbacks of what happened.
That's terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes there are witnesses, but it's pretty rare. I'd say probably one of the, as if I'm an expert, I'd say probably one of the scariest things that is a sign that you've been abducted is like an implant.
Oh, that's awful.
So like people often feel something that wasn't in their skin before, just underneath the skin. Oftentimes I'd say like on the neck somewhere or behind the ear.
Okay, so what you're saying is you really should make sure to check yourself.
I wanted to also talk about a few of the main types of aliens that we see, quote unquote.
Typically.
Yeah.
Perfect.
The three main ones, I'd say they are Nordic aliens, reptilians, and the Greys. So.
Ooh, I've heard of the Greys.
Mm-hmm. So we'll start with Nordic aliens. They come from the Pleiades star system, and they are tall with blonde hair and blue eyes.
Really?
Yeah, so they kind of look like, they're from Denmark or something.
Okay.
Yeah, they just look like, but like really hot. Like they're described as unearthly attractive,
Okay.
And they're taller. They're like 7 feet tall.
Oh.
In the 1950s, a man called George Adamski was the first to make contact.
Oh.
I'm not going to go into like detail about any of the initial contacts because that's a whole other podcast.
Oh, we could dive real deep.
Okay. But the Nordic aliens are generally peaceful and kind towards humans. And many believe that they may even have like an interest in our like continued existence.
Oh,
that
that's
they want us
positive.
to succeed.
Oh.
Yeah. Moving on from them to the reptilians, which you may have heard of. So the reptilians are from the Alpha Draconian star system, and they're kind of like a cross between a reptile and a human, but like taller than humans, probably like 10 feet tall.
Oh, so they'd stand out a little bit.
Yeah, but theoretically, they can shapeshift.
Unsettling. Okay.
So the conspiracy is, and it was popularized by a conspiracy theorist named David Icke, I believe his name is.
Okay.
The conspiracy is that they are in control of the government, or that they may even be shapeshifting into high-level government officials and royal family members. And if you ever watch like news reports or like court hearings and you see someone in the background doing weird things with their eyes, a lot of people seem to think that they are the reptilians because their eyes kind of like do the weird lizard thing, Yeah, so keep an eye on that. There may have been a few in the specific congressional hearing that we are going to talk about today.
Did you see any?
I didn't, but I looked.
Okay, I forgot to look.
I was also on 1.5 speed, so I don't know if that makes it different.
Probably.
Yeah,
Probably.
like, their eyes are
You might
different.
have to go, like 0.5 speed.
Yeah, slower.
Yeah.
And finally, we have the Greys, who are from the Zeta Reticuli star system. And they're described as shorter than the average person, gray, with large heads and big, dark eyes. They are like the stereotypical description of an alien, and they're kind of like what you think about when you think about aliens. This depiction of them goes back to the 1800s, and they've been linked to the Roswell incident as well as the Betty and Barney Hill case. Which, again, we can't go into either of those today, but soon.
Next time.
Soon we'll talk about them for sure.
We're going to have to do another update on this because this topic is not over yet.
There's so much coming out all the time.
Yeah.
They are also the most likely to be linked to abductions, and this may or may not be related, but they're also the most popular type of aliens in pop culture.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Nordic aliens are good.
Yeah.
The lizard aliens, reptilian aliens, are, like, less good. And the Greys are kind of just, like, in the middle. Like, they're not good or bad.
Yeah. The Greys, like, the reptilians are probably the ones that are most closely involved in our internal affairs,
Right.
Because they're, like, theoretically government officials.
Right.
Yeah.
Which could be bad.
It could be bad.
Okay.
It could be good, too, if they really have our best interests at heart, but I don't know that they do. I wanted to kind of give, like, a background on aliens and extraterrestrials as a whole. So there are, like, a few specific things and terms and scientific things that went on that I want to talk about.
Okay.
Because I think it's really interesting and I don't know where else we would talk about it.
I love that.
So this is kind of like our, like a little step into the waters of aliens.
Step into the waters. The alien-infested waters.
Okay, let's talk about the Kardashev scale.
Okay.
So this was created in 1964 by astronomer Nikolai Kardashev, and was created to measure a civilization's technological advances based on the amount of energy that they use.
Okay, wow, that's quite something. Okay.
So to start with, I think it's been expanded upon since then, but the three that he came up with were Type 1, Type 2, and Type 3.
Easy.
So Type 1 civilizations can harness the energy on their planet. So like coal and natural gases, but also theoretically be able to harness things like the power of earthquakes and natural events like that.
Oh, so we're not Type 1 yet.
We are not even yet a Type 1.
Yeah, okay.
We are like
we're
Type
doing
0.
bad.
We are negative type.
Yikes.
Type 2 civilizations can harness the power of a star through something like a Dyson sphere.
What?
So, have you heard of this term?
No.
So,
it sounds amazing.
I really tried with a lot of this, but my brain is just not mathematically inclined.
That's fair. That's hard.
It is hard. So, basically, it's like a giant mega structure that you put around a star, and it's kind of like we use solar energy. From my understanding of it, it's like harnessing the maximum amount of solar energy that you can from any given star, because it's like surrounding the star. It's not just like one little technology on a different planet, it's surrounding it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So theoretically, people believe that this is how the extraterrestrials could harness enough energy to travel through space and time.
Right, that makes sense.
And Type 3 civilizations can harness the power of a galaxy and everything in it, including black holes.
Oh, no. Oh, shoot. So that's literally the ultimate power.
Yeah.
So you think we'll get there ever?
Not us.
Fair, yeah.
It might exist, but I don't think that we can even comprehend how they would harness the power of a galaxy.
Yeah.
Because, like, you can't make a structure that goes around the whole galaxy, theoretically, unless we're currently in one. I don't know, maybe.
That's fair. How would you even build it outside of... Because all we're doing now is really just building things here and then sending it up to space, where some people can attach it to a larger structure, but we don't have the capacity to actually build out there, right?
I don't think so.
Unless I'm totally mistaken about everything.
There is, like, a theoretical thing that can happen that I was going to write down because I read the article on it, where you can have a machine that kind of self-replicates.
Oh!
Yeah.
So you just... Oh, okay, that would make sense.
Like, it creates more of itself as it goes along. Unless we are, like, the observable universe is in, like, one of these giant structures.
I see.
That's crazy. Maybe we are. I also wanted to talk about the Fermi paradox. The Fermi paradox was coined by a physicist named Enrico Fermi, I'm not sure,
okay,
in 1950. So basically, he was just out at lunch one day with a bunch of other smart scientist people, and he was like, yeah, but where are they all? And he passed away shortly after, just like a few years later, so his group mates that he was at lunch with went on to popularize this theory and continue, like, studies about it.
Aww.
And it's kind of like one of the driving factors for trying to understand extraterrestrial life, because, like, if aliens aren't here, why?
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah. Does that mean we're alone? Does that mean we're not alone and they're avoiding us? What does it mean? I will tell you a few theories.
Ooh.
Our solar system is only 4.5 billion years, which is fairly young considering the universe is like 26.7 billion.
That's old.
That's a
It's
recent
not old.
estimate.
We're not even 26 yet. I know it's billion, but it's still not old.
We're not even middle-aged yet.
No, the whole solar system is not even middle-aged yet.
No. The
in
solar
terms
system
of billions.
is just like a baby.
Really, though? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Probably hasn't even settled down yet. No.
So you'd think that given the fact that the rest of the universe or a lot of the universe is older than us, that there'd be at least one civilization out there capable of and interested in contacting us. So the theory is, if they haven't yet, then maybe they just don't exist.
Right.
But given what we know about the universe, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
True.
Using the Drake equation, which is a mathematical formula to determine the amount of intelligent life in the galaxy.
Oh.
It was created in 1961 by Dr. Frank Drake, and it's not exact, but because many of the components of the equation are theoretical and they can only be estimated. But the components are the average rate of star formation in the galaxy, the fraction of those stars that have planets, the average number of potentially life-supporting planets per star that has planets, the fraction of planets that could support life that actually do at some point, the fraction of planets with life that that becomes intelligent, the fraction of civilizations that sends evidence into space of their existence, the length of time these civilizations send this evidence into space. And if you multiply all of those, you get the number of civilizations in our galaxy. So, the last three on those are like purely guesses. We have no data on that. Of course, we don't, because we don't know if those civilizations even exist, and we only have a really small sample size because it's just us. So, So the equation is kind of impossible to solve, but it at least gives us an idea of what we need to find out before we even know how likely aliens are. And with estimates, on the low end, there could be 1,000 intelligent civilizations out there.
Wow.
On the high end, there could be 100 million intelligent civilizations out there. There's kind of like, using that mathematical formula, it makes sense that there's a few people out there, you know?
I mean, 1,000 is a bigger number than I was expecting.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I was expecting like 20.
And that's just in our galaxy.
Oh, that's just in our galaxy?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just kidding. Oh.
I have a theory. Because it really annoys me when people say life as we know it. Because, like, life as we know it needs certain things to survive. It needs water, it needs air, it needs other things.
Like food?
It needs food.
Like we need food?
We need food.
Right
yeah.
now. No.
Currently. But that doesn't mean that other life out there needs those things.
True.
Like, that would create us, but it might not create, you know, an alien.
Yeah, it might, who knows, it could kill an alien.
Yeah, they might need things like not air. They might be allergic to water.
They totally could be.
Yeah.
They also could be allergic to, like, oxygen.
Yeah. There could be, like, a ton of reasons that life isn't the same as what we view here. That they might be too small to see, but they're still, like, intelligent enough to reach us. Or they're invisible, and they're, like, walking amongst us. Or they're,
Totally.
like, aliens are ghosts or something. I don't know.
I absolutely agree with you. That's totally, like, the same thing that we talked about with Nessie. Like, there's no reason why these things could not exist. It's just that we're not looking or using the right tools to actually see them.
Yeah. Like, we don't know. They could
Totally.
already be here. So a lot of those planets... Okay, so something that a planet needs to have life as we know it...
As we know it. Okay.
As we know it, is that it needs to be in the habitable zone, also known as the Goldilocks zone. This means that it's basically a planet in the right range of its star to have water, liquid water on the surface. And around 1 in 5 stars are estimated to have an Earth-like planet in the habitable zone.
Oh, interesting.
And many of these stars are older than our sun, giving them, like, plenty of time to have life exist on their surface, right?
Right.
And there's also, like, we think that life wants to expand, it wants to colonize, and wants to take over, essentially, but that doesn't mean that all the aliens have that driving factor, you know?
That's true. That could just be, like, a completely human feeling.
Yeah, just because it's what we want doesn't mean that all aliens are wanting to colonize Earth.
True.
Maybe Earth is, like, boring. Maybe it doesn't have enough resources. Maybe we're not worth the trouble. There are tons of reasons why alien life could exist and not want to come to Earth.
True. Yup. That's a scary thought.
Yeah. There's also the idea that maybe aliens, the zoo hypothesis,
Ooh.
which is that we are basically a protected species that are not to be interfered with for whatever reason, or that something on our planet is, like mosquitoes in Lilo and Stitch.
Aww.
There's also the laboratory hypothesis, which is similar, but it's like we are basically being experimented on in some capacity.
Right. Instead of just being observed, we're being observed based on reactions or something.
Yeah.
Reactions to certain things that they do. That's fun. Their notes are probably like, very hostile.
Honestly. I won't be if you contact me, I promise.
Will be nice. I'll be terrified, but in flight, fight, or freeze, I always freeze, so don't worry.
Good. Perfect. There may also be, like, a certain threshold that we need to reach before the aliens contact us. Like, they're watching us and waiting for us to be advanced enough that we're even worth contacting. Or maybe they won't contact us until we're capable of contacting them.
They could still, in that specific situation, they could still be viewing us as babies because we haven't made it to this certain level.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, the adults aren't gonna, you know, really have a serious conversation with the baby. They'll do it with a toddler, maybe. But with babies, they'll just go, oh, I just want to bite you. You're just, you know.
Yeah, like, show up in the sky and then, like, play peekaboo.
Literally, though.
Yeah.
Literally.
That's what they're doing to us.
That is. They're just playing in our water and playing peekaboo with us.
Yeah. Perhaps there's a singularly powerful civilization instilling these rules. Or maybe they're mutually agreed upon. There's like all these different alien civilizations teaming up and talking amongst each other and agreeing upon these rules. Or perhaps there's one that's like enforcing them.
I kind of like to think that they're all doing it together. Like there's not one governing thing.
Yeah, it's weird though, because when you think about us specifically, we have all these different made up barriers.
True.
You know, we have all these different countries and all these different leaders and all these different cultures. We don't work together so much. And I wonder, like, if aliens do exist, but if aliens exist, are they like us, that each planet has its own barriers and stuff, or are they more like...
Probably not.
It might depend on, like, also the size of the planet or how advanced they are, because when I think about aliens, that's what I think, that's what makes sense to me, but that's also only because I don't know, you know? I don't know.
Well, I mean, when you look at, like, our world, I feel like I could see how that would be beneficial for us on Earth.
Yeah, just to have more, I guess, like, understanding and compassion and connection.
Connection, that's exactly the right word.
Yeah, and it's easier to have now because of the internet.
That's true. I mean, so one of the points that people are talking about is, like, maybe aliens, like we just mentioned it earlier, that maybe aliens don't feel the need to conquer. So maybe they don't have greed inherently. So if they didn't have greed inherently, they might not need, in my opinion, they could potentially not need help by someone governing them and saying, well, you have these resources and they have nothing. Like, they don't have these resources and you have an abundance. So naturally, you need to give these to them. They might just not be greedy enough and be like, well, here.
Yeah. And probably it's different for every alien civilization out there.
So true.
But I kind of believe that, I don't know if I believe this, but an idea that I have,
that you're leading towards,
could be that in order to advance, we need to have the type of connection that comes without borders. And, like, imaginary made up, this country and this country and this country, we need to have connection.
That makes sense. I mean, what would our next step be as a planet?
Yeah, because it makes sense that we had to have those borders when we were a younger civilization, because we didn't have the technology that needed to be able to communicate with other people.
True.
But now we can, like, basically talk to anyone that we want to.
At any time.
At any time. We can connect with anyone.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also the idea that intelligent life could have evolved past the point that humans would even be able to detect them, or that perhaps the way that they communicate is different. Like, we communicate through radio signals to space, but they might not be using radio signals, or they might be using it on a frequency that's lower or higher than what we can understand or detect, that we just kind of register it as background noise. Even one civilization deciding to contact Earth would kind of change everything.
Totally. With domino effect.
Yeah. And it would kind of blow a lot of these hypotheses out of the water and a lot of these, like, theories out of the water. But I'd argue that has already happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you look at, there's certain things that when you look at, it's hard to say that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. And there might be, like, a lot of reasons that they don't want to, land and come out of their spaceship and talk to us. Like, maybe they're allergic to the air. Or maybe they can't physically communicate with us. Or maybe they don't want to for any reason.
So what if they're actually trying to communicate with us and that's why they don't need to get out of their ship, because they don't need to do that with other species. So when they come with their ships and, like, we see them, they're just talking to us, but we're not getting it because our brains are too tiny.
Maybe. Or maybe we've been, like, there's the advanced civilization in charge of us, and they've, like, locked that part of our brain that communicates with them.
Oh, no!
Because they don't want to communicate with us yet.
Oh, that's terrifying.
So, the mediocrity principle states that Earth is most likely one of many, and that there should be intelligent life on other planets. Alternatively, the rare Earth hypothesis states that all the different things needed for intelligent life, as we know it, are so rare that we really are a 1 in 100 billion chance. But again, we don't know what life could look like on other planets, and we really only know what it could look like on ours. And we shouldn't assign our rules to the universe as a whole, because we are a sample size of just one.
Well said.
The aliens could exist, but they could be, like, swimming around in oceans made of methane, you know? Looking like dolphins, but communicating telepathically.
Very true.
We don't know that. Or they could be the size of, like, an ant, and most people wouldn't even notice them. Or they could be invisible, and we think that they're ghosts, but they're actually aliens.
True. That's so true.
There's also the idea that maybe there is danger out there.
Oh. Uh-oh.
So maybe it's called the dark forest hypothesis.
Dark forest?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because, you know, in a dark forest, there's all these, like, dangerous things, but you can't see any of it.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps there's, like, this big threat, this big enemy, so all the aliens are quiet and sticking to themselves and staying on their planet. And we don't know about it yet. We don't know about this big threat. So they're hiding, and we're here, blasting our signals into space, waiting for the bad guys to come, because no one else is coming.
That's terrifying. I don't like that one.
I'm gonna hit you with something else that's a little scary.
No!
And then we can move on.
Okay.
Have you heard of the Great Filter?
No.
So the Great Filter is the idea that sometime during the early stages of life, there's some sort of barrier that makes it rare for life to continue to develop.
Oh, yikes.
So this basically begs the question, have we passed this threshold yet, or is it yet to come? When does it happen? Does it happen when we are a bunch of cells, or does it happen when we are about to launch into space to travel to the next galaxy?
You're right, that was worse. Okay. All of this stuff is, like, so philosophical.
I love it. I love it. It's so fun.
These are the things that will keep you up at night.
It's
me, at least.
It's really scary, because, like, one of the theories is that, you know, life tends to destroy itself.
True.
Because we have all these things that we do. We have wars, we have global warming, we have, climate change. We have, we destroy ourselves.
We do. It's all mostly self-inflicted.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we do also destroy others. Like, we've just, you know, there's some animal species that are extinct now.
Because of us.
Yeah.
Maybe intelligent life just tends to destroy. Perhaps that's just, like,
Is that
happens.
Is that like the lifespan of everything? Once eventually we'll reach a point of intelligence where we all realize that it's meaningless and just end it.
Yeah, maybe. It's
How
like
fun.
it's like somewhere along the line, I have an idea that possibly perhaps we could reach a point of evil or higher level utopia thinking, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think climate change is getting out of hand and has been getting out of hand for, like, decades, and it's going to get worse.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have the capacity as individuals to be better, but as
a whole society,
there's too many bad people.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the case for every intelligent life out there, but perhaps the nature of life is to destroy. The nature of intelligence is to end.
Actually, that's a very good point. Because when you look at life that typically maybe works less on free will and more on just, you know, like, what is that word? I'm thinking, like, we have free will, but like a deer or like a tiger.
Instinct.
Thank you. Yes, instinct. Thank you. They don't think about things or if they're doing things right or wrong. They just know what they're doing. Like, I'm hungry. Let's do this. And
They just know survival.
Yeah, and nature is brutal. So maybe just all of life is brutal.
Maybe all of life is brutal.
How happy.
Maybe
Mm-hmm.
the aliens, there is, like, a civilization that has our best interest at heart, and maybe they will come and help us. Because there's also another theory that Earth itself is an energy source, and that they want to protect Earth, and I think our greatest threat right now is climate change. Theoretically, the Earth itself could be a power source that they don't want to lose, that they have to protect, and perhaps we are a part of that system that they also have to protect.
That is really interesting.
Yeah. There's, like, so many theories just on the Fermi paradox alone.
Yikes.
Like, so many. I spent hours. I spent the majority of my research on the Wikipedia page for Fermi paradox. Because
You wormholed.
so dense. I wormhole so hard. All of this is a wormhole. Don't be scared. The aliens will save us.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, that's good.
I wanted to end that part on a good note.
Thank you. That was a good note. There's no need to be alarmed. Everything will be fine.
Everything will be fine. Let's talk about the WOW signal. Have you heard about this?
I don't know that I have.
Okay, so the WOW signal was detected for the first and last time in August 1977. So it was detected by Ohio State University's Big Ear Telescope There were two reports about this guy, whether he was an astronomer or an intern.
Oh, okay, very different.
But his name was Jerry Amen. He was reviewing the data a few days later after it was recorded, and he noticed the anomaly, and he wrote beside it in red ink, he wrote, "Wow," with an exclamation point. So that's why it's called the WOW signal.
Oh, that's really cute.
The signal seemed to come from constellation Sagittarius, and the signal lasted for 72 seconds, and that was as long as the telescope could monitor any specific point in the sky.
Okay.
So it's theorized that it was going on longer than like before and after.
Right.
In that 72 seconds.
That's all the telescope caught.
Yeah.
Came in midway.
Yeah, and the way that it worked was that it kind of started lower and then peaked halfway through at 36 seconds and then dipped.
Interesting.
Because that's, when the telescope was pointed directly at the spot that it was coming from.
Okay, that makes sense then.
Yeah. So it was 30 times louder than the background noise around it.
Goodness.
And it was clear that it was a radio signal rather than any other type of interference, as it was on one signal frequency with a narrow band. I don't know what that means.
Oh.
I tried to figure it out. It doesn't make sense to me, but that's the thing.
Hopefully you can figure it out.
So it hasn't appeared since and has never been explained, and the signal is largely considered the best evidence for alien radio transmission.
Wow. That's really cool.
Literally, wow.
Wow. I can't believe I haven't heard of that before.
It's pretty cool.
It reminds me of the, we just talked about it. The, the blurb. In the ocean. The blip. Thank you. Yes. It reminds me of the blip. Space blip.
What if they were the same thing?
What if it's the same alien species? Just one's from their home and what year was that? 1950?
1977.
I just want to see when the blip actually happened because I don't remember.
Because maybe it was like...
Oh, the bloop.
Oh, I was wrong. Sorry. The bloop.
1997. Exactly 20 years later?
Maybe they were communicating. One lives in the ocean and one lives in space, and it was sending the signal. And it took 20 years to reach. That
could be. Interesting.
I think we just solved it.
We might have. We are geniuses.
It happens. One more thing I want to talk about before we get into the hearing is the Arecibo message. Have you heard about that?
I don't think so.
It's crazy.
Oh, good. Okay.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I hope I am. In November 1974, the Arecibo message was sent out to a cluster of stars called Messier 13. And the star cluster was chosen because it was relatively close, only 25,000 light years away.
So close. It's like next door.
And it was convenient because this message was basically like a celebratory thing. It wasn't like meant to be an actual communication with aliens. It was just kind of like a celebratory thing because the telescope, the Arecibo telescope, was remodeled in Puerto Rico.
Ooh.
So it was remodeled and they wanted to celebrate that. So they sent out this message.
Do you know what the message, like, did they say human words in the message?
I will tell you.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Frank Drake of the Drake equation and Carl Sagan of, very famous scientist fame, designed the message comprised of 1,679 bits of data that could be translated into images.
Oh.
So the binary code was broadcasted for less than 3 minutes in total. So the message contains a few different things about human life. The first thing that you see there
on the top, is it okay? It feels like I'm looking at kind of like a cave drawing.
Yeah. So The data is basically like binary code, so it can be translated into these images, but it was just, ones and zeros, basically, broadcasted into space.
Okay.
But the message contained the numbers 1 to 10, the atomic numbers of hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and phosphorus, otherwise known as what makes up DNA, formulas for the chemical compounds that make the nucleotides of DNA, the number of DNA nucleotides
That's tough.
in the human genome, and a double helix DNA image, the height of the average man beside a graphic of a human figure.
Are our feet really that big compared to our head?
What is that about?
Is it Bigfoot?
Are they like showing Bigfoot to the aliens?
Do you think?
Protect this one. Beside that is the population at the time, which was 4 billion. Then below that is a graphic of the solar system that shows kind of where the signal is from. So you got like the solar system, and then the third planet from the sun is like raised towards a human because we're, on the Earth.
Oh, that one actually makes sense.
That one does. A graphic of the telescope and the dimension of the antennae dish. Like I said, it was more of a celebratory thing than any real attempt at communication, but it may have received a response.
Oh my goodness. What happened?
So in August 2001, a crop circle appeared in Hampshire, UK, near another radio telescope.
Oh.
This crop circle was 75 feet wide and 120 feet long. It was basically an imprint of the Arecibo message, but with a few differences. Silicon had been added to the list of elements in the place of carbon. So instead of carbon in the list of elements, it had silicon, which basically so is that what makes up their DNA? And the DNA diagram was rewritten to reflect this change. The human graphic was changed to a stereotypical image of an alien with a big head.
Very much so.
And a new solar system was shown with the 2nd, 4th, and 5th planets being emphasized.
Oh.
And instead of the telescope image, it was replaced by a basically image of a crop circle that had appeared in that field a year before.
Oh, I don't know why, but this whole topic gave me so many chills, and I just got them again all over my face. I don't think I like that one.
SETI states that it is highly improbable that this is a genuine reply.
Fair enough.
But I couldn't find a lot of information about it.
That's probably because it's hidden.
It's probably hidden. And I couldn't find anyone coming forward and being like, yeah, I made the crop circle. And also, it is huge. It is 75 feet wide and 120 feet long. And it is by a radio station. So, if somebody would have to do that in one night. They wouldn't be able to just do it continuously over the course of days because someone at the radio station would have seen them.
Wow, I haven't thought about it that way, but yeah.
So it would either take a group of people, which means that someone is more likely to come forward.
So true.
Or it's aliens, basically. The amount of planning that would take?
Yeah, the amount of planning that would take and the amount of, okay, this might sound silly, but I feel like you kind of have to have some sort of, scientific background or understanding to come up with stuff like that so that other scientists or other people could maybe think that it could be possible. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Your average Joe couldn't do that.
Yeah. Couldn't come up with something that couldn't have a whole bunch of holes poked in it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure you could poke holes in that too, but I don't know.
It's weird, right?
It is weird.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think that's basically everything I wanted to talk about before we get into the hearing.
Okay. Before we do that, could I talk about a few things first? Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to talk about NASA and the Pentagon. Briefly. So I want to talk about NASA because we previously talked about them. They were setting up a study to help better determine how we should be identifying and classifying UAPs going forward. So they were supposed to be finished that study by the end of summer. And then I wanted to talk about the Pentagon because they're kind of involved in this whole talk a little bit. So I'm going to start with NASA, keep it simple and straightforward. So NASA They had a broadcast update on their project to, like I said, determine more classifications for UAPs and how to better classify them. They had this update on May 31st, 2023, so like a couple months ago. And in that broadcast, they said that they should have their final report out by the end of July. So it's mid-August right now, and they still, I wasn't able to find that published anywhere, so I don't think that they've published that yet.
Huh.
So for that reason, I'm not going to be talking too much about what they discussed, because they did bring up some specific cases in the broadcast, but because they haven't published their final findings on it and it's late, I think that it might be better if I leave talking about that, or we leave talking about that until they've actually published that.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Because it should, honestly, if it comes out tomorrow, I'm going to be a little annoyed.
We might have to like do an emergency record.
Honestly. So I'm going to just bring out a few key points from that broadcast. So as I stated before, they mentioned that their UAP description of the A has officially changed by the NDAA, but for the purpose of their studies, they're going to continue to consider it as aerial. So they're only going to focus on the aerial anomalies, not anything on the ground.
Okay, so when they use the term anomalous, they mean like anything
Unidentifiable.
Okay.
I believe.
But for this one, they're only using air.
Yeah.
At least space. Okay.
Yeah, and it makes sense because that's what they started with. Like, I'm pretty sure NASA came up with that term, and they used aerial, and then this other group was like, nah.
Okay. Cool.
So NASA had to clarify to be like, no, we're going to continue with our original term while we understand that it has changed now. Yes.
They're NASA and they can do what they want.
That's right. So I didn't write this down, but I thought it was interesting also. There were two things that they didn't focus on during their case studies, and one of them was the Maritimes, meaning like water, which I thought was very odd when we continue to talk about some of the things that, as we just continue to talk about during this podcast.
Yeah.
So many cases talk about them coming in or out of water. Like, water seems to be like 50%. At 50% of like a lot of the cases. Like, it's crazy.
Specifically ocean water, right?
Yeah. Like salty water, they just love it. I don't know. So I thought this was interesting also. To start out their broadcast, they gave an overview and they reiterated some of the things that they stood for and wanted to remind people of the purpose. So they said that the primary objective of NASA is to give a roadmap for scientific discovery. NASA prides itself on making its data available to the public. We aim for open and honest dialogue with the public. So their whole campaign now is, we are working with you. We are together. We're going to be open. That's what they're trying to do.
Okay.
So to further show that they're trying to do this, they have something called open data, which is a term used to describe every bit of unclassified data that they used in their studies so that it can be open to the public. So they only used unclassified data because if it was classified data, they couldn't share their findings, essentially, which makes sense. And the reason that they say this is because, like, if some of this data was taken from like a top secret plane, they couldn't rightfully share all of that data, because then, you know, the people that we don't want to have information on like how far the scope of our planes can see would have that information.
Right, like other countries.
Yes. Specifically, they're not worried about the aliens because what are they going to do? They don't care. The aliens are not concerned about the scope of our planes.
No.
The other countries might be. So all of their open data can actually be found online at data.nasa.gov, or apparently they have a catalog, which is like an overview catalog, which is maybe makes it easier for you to find things on there. I'm not sure, because I kind of had a hard time finding things on both of them, but the overview is at data.gov/open/data, and they both sound pretty official, so Yeah.
Very official.
One point on that, though, that I'm a little confused about, and I want your opinion. So they said all the stuff and that we're open to sharing everything with the public, but then they said that they will only put out data once it's perfect. So, like, if they have an imperfect data, which I'm assuming, like, if they have a study that they haven't finished or something, they won't put it out. But then how is that, like, open data where everything that you're looking at is now out to the public? I'm a little confused about that.
They should have, like, separate ones. They should have one that's, like, you know, incomplete, and then another one that's complete.
The human being that mentioned this did say that they had a term that they used to describe certain data that was, like, incomplete or that was very basic or something. I can't quite remember, but essentially to signify that it's like a small portion of data. There was a certain term that was on the pieces on the website that you could see, but then they went on to say again that they don't post until it's perfect.
That's weird.
I know.
That seems contradictory.
I really am not sure if maybe they meant like we don't post it until we've thoroughly researched it and know that we haven't missed a single thing. But perfect is a very confusing term to use. Anyways, they're doing their best regardless.
Perfect seems like kind of subject, like, you know.
Right?
Yeah.
We're going to withhold it until we feel that you're prepared to see all of it.
Yeah, it's like, how do you know?
Right? So I have a few more points from this broadcast. They mentioned a couple times that they want to reduce the stigma around UAPs and reporting on them, which this is a recurring theme throughout the hearing that we'll talk about, and that they're focusing on transparency with the public.
Right.
Again, they want to be real open with all their stuff. Okay, so that's all I have on NASA, I guess. Short and sweet, just to keep it small, because, yeah, I didn't want to get into all the things that they will probably change anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now into the Pentagon. I did not actually know this part, because people talk about the Pentagon like it's its own entity. It's not. It's just a building. The Department of Defense just named a building the Pentagon, and its name has apparently nothing. There's nothing in the structure of the government called the Pentagon. It's just the name of the building.
That might be because we are Canadian. So we didn't learn about the different levels of government in school. And we learned about the different levels of Canadian government, but not the US government.
I didn't think about that, actually.
Yeah. But I totally thought the same thing. I thought the Pentagon was like
a department.
Yeah, it was a department of the government, but it's just a building?
It's literally just a building. It's just the DOD's headquarters.
I had no idea. I thought it was like, you know, you have Congress and then you have the Pentagon.
Right?
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah, it's not.
It's not because we're dumb, we're just Canadian.
Please don't hate us. Or I'm sorry. I'm doing my best. The Pentagon. We've been talking about that.
Yeah.
So they now have the arrow, which we talked about earlier. I explained what the abbreviation stands for. Thank you. I explained what the abbreviation stands for. So the arrow, or just arrow, I'm not sure. It's meant to investigate a lot of incidents from the perspective of national security. So NASA talked about this in their broadcast. They said that the difference between Arrow and them is that they're just meant to try and figure out ways to classify the data, and Arrow is trying to figure out if the data is dangerous to our society. Okay. Yeah, makes sense based on what they're supposed to be doing. Yeah. So the Secretary of Defense, which I mentioned, second in the hierarchy only to the president, they're in charge of Arrow, and they put it in place in July 2022. So pretty recently. Okay. On defense.gov, which is the Department of Defense's website, there's actually a few articles from some of their meetings. Okay. And just other information that they've wanted to put out to the public. But to my understanding and my research, they haven't really posted any of their findings at the moment. Okay. Like, I couldn't find anything about them responding to the idea that there's a threat to our life as we know it. Okay. Like you said. That being said, though, don't quote me on this because I can't prove that this is real. Some people, not me or Tash, say that the Pentagon is responsible for leaking certain videos of UAPs.
Oh. Okay.
Or releasing videos. Either releasing or leaking.
Okay.
One of the two. But then not talking about it. It's very confusing. I don't actually understand what's going on.
Okay.
So one thing that I'll also talk about a little bit later, so just to give you a bit of an explanation, when I talk about the UAP task force, that was an old name for what's now known as ARROW.
Oh, okay.
They're the same sort of idea. They're a little bit different, as in they were, I think the UAP existed and then the Secretary of Defense was like, yeah, I'm going to replace you with ARROW. So they changed their name and brought in new stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're essentially the same thing.
Okay.
One other thing, this will be my last point, I believe, before we get into the hearing. The Pentagon was upset about the hearing because they did not like how they were portrayed in the hearing. And I believe that they actually tweeted out a response which certain Congress members said was not the best thing for them to do, to tweet. But they didn't tweet out anything controversial necessarily. They just sort of said, I want to thank all of our hard workers here at the Pentagon for all of their hard work and dedication that they've made towards UAP understanding and discovery or something like that. Mm. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's my last point.
Okay, so they were basically like trying to cover for themselves, being like, yeah, thank you for doing this, as if they're not the ones that are trying to hide things.
I mean, possibly. I kind of took it as certain things might have been said in the hearing that kind of maybe didn't paint the Pentagon in the best of light. And so the Pentagon was like, okay, well, thanks for just, being mean to my workers. I'm going to make sure that my workers know that I appreciate them and that they're not bad people.
And their workers are literally like government employees.
Yeah, he's literally the guy tweeting.
He's like, thank you to me and me only.
You know who you are.
Okay, well, shall we get into the hearing then?
Oh my goodness, let's get into the hearing.
The whole reason we're here. So, on July 26th of this year, 2023, the U.S. Congress held a hearing disclosing some pretty wild stuff. Again, while we go through this, we just mean the U.S. government. There was no other parties involved, just the U.S. government.
Yes.
So, the court hearing was a lot about how to improve reporting of UAPs and how the government should handle them with transparency with the public. And a big problem is that there is no clear system to report these sightings to, especially as many of these individuals are military personnel as well as commercial airline pilots and flight attendants and such, so they would risk their livelihoods if they were not believed. And we'll get into it, but apparently a few of them were sent cease and desist letters by the corporations that they represented when they came forward with their sightings. Mm-hmm. So a lot of this hearing is also about getting rid of the stigma of UFO and UAP reports, because, a lot of people still kind of think of it as crazy conspiracy theorists living in a camper in the backwoods trying to make contact with aliens, but I think the majority of people nowadays are receptive to it, even if that stigma is there. So there were 3 witnesses: Lieutenant Ryan Graves, former intelligence officer David Gresh, and retired Navy Commander David Fravor. And most of the hearing was an interview, kind of Q&A back and forth with these witnesses and members of Congress. So it's kind of like there was the, what is the name? What would you call him? He's like the...
Mediator?
The mediator.
Not the mediator.
But kind of the mediator.
He's the chairman.
The chairman, yeah. So he kind of ran the meeting and directed each member of Congress to have their however many minutes they could ask questions back and forth.
I want to say they might have had 5. Someone mentioned that they had 5 minutes.
So it was kind of good because, they have to get right to the point. Yeah. But it was also kind of bad because sometimes they got cut off while they were trying to ask questions.
I mean, I'm very appreciative for the hearing. Some of the people I felt were a little bit rude and also did not perhaps use their time very wisely, as in they talked about things that were very unimportant, or for example, they were the ones that talked and didn't actually give time for the people to answer, or maybe they didn't want them to answer, they just wanted to send a message out to the public that was listening.
Yeah, I agree. Some of them kind of talked the whole time rather than asking the questions to the witnesses.
Yeah, which was why they're there. But anyways.
I will say that a lot of them seemed like they're not high-level government employees. They're like low-level. And a lot of them were apparently tried to get to the bottom of the UAP phenomena, and they were denied access to a lot of things. Most of them, I'd say, were trying to get to the bottom of things and seemed pretty excited by the idea.
I agree. There were definitely some really passionate people that genuinely just... Their job... Yeah, that's their job, is to know, and that's...
Yeah.
They're trying to do that.
Yeah. So let's start with Ryan Graves, because he was the first one on the stand.
So, he was a Navy F-18 pilot.
Okay.
I was able to pull their testimonies from the House of Commerce, and he specifically identified himself as an F-18 pilot. Also, he said that, I don't know if, I'm not sure if I'm understanding this right, but he stated his name as Ryan Fobbs Graves, F-O-B-S in capitals. So I don't know if that's like his call sign. I'm not sure what that is. That wasn't explained.
They do have nicknames.
Right? They do. Fobbs?
Fobbs, can you reach out to us, please? We have a few questions.
That's why it's totally not his nickname, and it's like really insensitive.
Oh no. Oh no, I hope it's not.
It literally was Ryan, quote, Fobbs, unquote, Graves.
Okay, that's his
That's
nickname.
gotta be his nickname.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think we should refer to him by that, but...
We won't.
Thanks for coming on our podcast, Fobbs. So good to talk to you. He was a Navy pilot for 5 years at the time of his experience. He mentioned in his testimony that he was highly trained to be able to determine a friend from foe while in the air. So he specifically said, I was trained to be an expert observer tasked with identifying any aircraft within our operating area. So he was asked at one point during the hearing if he could have really, at the distance that he saw what he saw, that if he could have really determined that it actually wasn't one of our aircraft, and that was what he said in response. So he clearly is trying to say that he has a lot of experience and that he's good in the area of identifying things.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I also have that he founded an organization called America for Safe Aerospace to keep track of reports. When he realized that there was no real way to report UAP incidents, he created this organization, and so far 30 witnesses have come forward to this specific organization.
He does talk a lot about how pilots are discounted a lot.
Yeah.
He's like a big, obviously he came up with this website, so he's a big part of that portion of the conversation.
Right. Yeah.
He's really cool.
He seems like he wants to better the lives of,
Everyone.
Yeah.
Also, interesting point, Ryan Graves, Mr. Ryan Graves, when you type in Ryan Graves into a search engine, all that comes up is the hockey player. For the first 2 pages, it's just hockey player Ryan Graves.
I didn't know there was a hockey player.
Me neither, but that's all that comes up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Weird.
I know, you would think he would be within the first page.
Yeah. Yeah.
Considering what's going on right now.
You would think. I feel like, maybe,
it's kind of important. I don't know.
Maybe people are just covering it up.
Right? It's a little suspicious.
Maybe. So next on the stand we have David Grush.
Well, he is an interesting man. Mr. Grush is very interesting. He's been in very influential positions within the intelligence services throughout his career, so much so that he was eventually promoted to the head of the Pentagon's UAP task force before turning to Arrow, and that he actually had the highest clearance, being the head of this task force. So he, I'm assuming, essentially had access to everything. He has very reputable credentials. I didn't look into this much because I just did not want to. But apparently some people have come forward to try and discredit him by saying, oh, but look at his, like, mental health history, or look at his medical history. Do you have stuff on that?
No, but I saw that. There was, like, an article that said that he had PTSD. And I was like...
Girl, you better put that back.
You better dial it back. Rewind. Because, like, yeah, he might, but that doesn't mean that he's... Like, somebody with PTSD wouldn't... That's not, like, a... Making up an alien conspiracy is not a symptom of PTSD. It doesn't make him less credible. And if you listen to this man speak, he's incredibly smart and coherent and comprehensible. Everything he says... I had to Google so much of what he said, because he said things that I just completely went over my head. Because he's, like... I think he said that he had a degree in physics or something as well.
Thank you. I was just thinking about that. I couldn't remember if it was a doctorate or just a degree. Just a degree.
Sure.
I think you're right. I had a degree in physics.
Yeah. So,
like a very, very smart human.
He's very smart. And, like, he knows what he's talking about, it seems like.
And he has enough experience also to understand.
Yeah.
Much more than I would say I do.
Yeah. More than, like, the average person would, of course. Yeah, that really annoyed me. So it's like, you can't say that someone has PTSD and then say that everything that they say is wrong because of that. That's just, like, that's ableist.
Totally.
And, yeah.
How dare you discredit someone? Attempt to discredit someone like that.
Yeah.
Just ridiculous. So, to counterpoint that, at least, some considerably high-ranking officials did come to his defense. Not his defense, but they decided to speak on his character and vouch for him, essentially. Which was nice.
Yeah, that's really, yeah. Because he is the guy that basically, he is the reason that this hearing happened, basically, because he's the one who whistleblowed. And I will say that, from my understanding of it, he went through all the proper channels and did everything as legally as he could. Because when I first heard the term whistleblower, I was like, this guy just...
He ran away.
He ran away and just, like, went to the press and started talking about aliens. But no, he went legally through all the proper procedures, and you will hear throughout what he says in his court interview, or whatever you want to call it, that there are a lot of things that he can't say and won't say legally, because he went through the proper channels to get clearance to talk about this stuff. Yeah.
There's a man named Mr. Ross Coulthart, who is a journalist. His point is that Mr. Gresh is actually he shouldn't be considered a whistleblower, because the term can be, I mean, not to put words in your mouth, Mr. Coulthart, but I'm inferring, which maybe I shouldn't do, but my take on what you said was really that he shouldn't be called a whistleblower, because that denotes a stigma of this person stole information from the government and is now trying to just exploit it to the public for, like, a media frenzy or for his own gain. And that's, like you said, not the case at all. He got permission. He still has clearance. He still has his government clearance during, if my understanding is correct, during the time of this hearing, even though he may not be employed under the UAP task force currently, he somehow still has his clearance.
Okay.
Because he's working, like, he's not the head of the task force anymore, but he's still working with the task force. Like, the task force's point is to, like, help keep the public safe. And as being the head of the task force, if he felt that the public needed to know certain things to keep them safe, then he's still acting on everyone's best interest.
Right.
By telling.
Yeah.
To kind of give even more credibility to Mr. Gresh, he does sort of allude to the idea that he's potentially a little bit afraid for his life, but more so that he's afraid of going to prison for sharing too much information or the wrong information. Because, like we just said, there's stuff that he cannot share because it's still classified, I suppose.
Yeah.
And he also mentioned, which I thought was really interesting, that his wife also has some knowledge of this.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't get too much on that, but he said that, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, he said something about his wife at one point, that she knew about something.
Yeah.
And I don't know what his wife does. I don't know who she is. I don't think that that's like information that we should go digging for because it's his personal life.
I hope that information is not out there in the public either because like for her own safety, I don't think that should be public knowledge.
No, because but it's possible that she could be also on the UAP task force or something like that. That she could be a government official.
That could be too.
Otherwise, I'm not sure why she would know about that.
I mean, it could be like because Mr. Gresh spent a lot of his time one-on-one talking to people, like not necessarily in a professional setting all the time, because it's clear that a professional setting for these things is not actually like an open setting where you can talk about whatever you want like this. So it's possible that maybe like some people came to him in private to like at his house or something to be like, I need to talk to you about this.
I didn't think about that, but that's true. That could be a thing.
And it would be kind of rude for him to be like, honey, can you like wait outside?
Can you go do something else for a bit? Kicking you out of the house. Yeah, the Congress members seem to really take issue with the idea that he felt so afraid. Which was kind of nice to see. They were like, you should be protected and you should not fear for your life for trying to make this information available.
Yeah.
Which was kind of nice. And
I think that's part of a policy that they're trying to put in place, like the whistleblower protection policy.
Yeah, like you said, there's things that he can't talk about in public, but he could talk about them privately in a skiff. Which I think, honestly, kind of defeats the purpose of this whole thing. Because we want the knowledge that we can have. And I also kind of think that perhaps, I'm not saying this is fact, this is just an idea that I have, that perhaps the reason that the Congress members kept kind of reiterating the same questions was maybe they were trying to word them in a way that he could speak on. Some of the things he said, I was like, there's no way that isn't classified, but maybe they asked the question in such a way that he was allowed to say the things that he knew. Yeah, that's true, actually. That would make a lot of sense, because he was incredibly careful. Yeah, he was so careful. So the last one on the stand was David Fravor. He's an interesting one because he doesn't seem to have a lot of in-depth, he doesn't have a lot to do with aliens or UAPs or any of that. He was just a witness in one specific sighting, which we will talk about a little bit.
Mr. Fravor was also a Navy pilot. There was a video, there was evidence that was fairly talked about of like a tic-tac-toe. A tic-tac-toe? I mean a tic-tac, sorry. Of a tic-tac UAP. And that is his evidence. So we'll talk about his experience at some point.
I think part of the reason he was on the stand is because the Tic Tac video that he was a part of is considered like the most credible piece of footage, and because it was from the military, it wasn't just like your average Joe. It was like a military video.
I have their experiences from their testimonies. Ryan had the biggest testimony of all of them. He had a 5-page testimony, essentially. So Mr. Graves just gave a couple points in his opening testimony. He said that there are 3 critical issues. You probably heard this, right? There are 3 critical issues that demand our immediate attention and concerted action. He actually, I love the way that he spoke, I think. Because he was super, like, he's a really great speaker. I don't know, he makes you understand the urgency, but also not freak out. But also, he makes you think. So, like, his first point is, as we convene here, UAP are in our airspace. But they're grossly underreported.
That's powerful.
Isn't it, though? Like, isn't it, though? His second is, the stigma attached to UAP is real and powerful and challenges national security. Like, wow. The third point is, the government knows more about UAP than shared publicly, and excessive classification practices keep crucial information hidden.
Okay.
And then he talks about his experience.
Okay, so he had like the 3 things that he wants to basically focus on, and then
his testimony is like, this is what I'm concerned about, and this is why I'm here.
Right.
And this is why I am here, because of this that's happened to me.
Yeah, like the relevancy. So he went on to talk about his own experience, which
After his experience, he does mention the Americans for Safe Airspace. Oh, the Americans for Safe Airspace, Aircrew, and Military UAP Witness Program, which is Americans for Safe Aerospace.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
the organization that he founded.
Exactly. Again, like we said before, he really does focus on the stigmas. So I believe he said also that, I think it was him that said that to his knowledge, only about 5% of commercial pilot sightings are reported.
Yeah, so 95% are not reported. 5% are reported and not taken seriously.
Yeah.
Because they don't have systems in place to report it, and they risk their jobs by reporting it.
True. It's been said that if you want to keep your job, you keep your mouth shut.
Right.
Yeah. That's kind of the viewpoint of commercial pilots on aviation. Did you watch the News Now article that Mr. Rush did?
The News Nation?
Sorry. Yeah, the News Nation video that they put out. It's not an article.
I didn't realize it was not an article. I couldn't find it because I thought it was an article. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Okay.
Did you?
I did. It was interesting. He actually, Mr. Grush refers to his News Nation interview often, where he's like, something like, I've already mentioned this in the News Nation interview, and I said that blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Yeah. Mr. Grush's opening statement, he really just goes over his experience mostly. He actually calls himself a whistleblower in the opening statement, which goes directly against what Mr. Coulthard called him.
Yeah.
But he says that I became a whistleblower through a PPD-19 urgent concern filing with the Intelligence Community Inspector General, following concerning reports from multiple esteemed and credentialed current and former military and intelligence community individuals that the U.S. government is operating with secrecy above congressional oversight with regards to UAPs. So essentially, he's like, things are happening that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I'm here.
That's why I'm here, yeah.
Pretty much. And yeah, he continues to talk about his experience and how he hopes to open the lines of communication on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's probably honestly a good thing that he came forward, because now that his name is public, you know, he can't really go missing. Mm-hmm. If something bad happens to him, everybody's gonna know.
Mm-hmm. So Mr. David Fravor, in his testimony, he briefly talked about his experience, like his naval experience, and then talked about his actual experiences with UAPs.
Okay.
Yeah. He goes on to say that it's like the aftermath of that experience. So he says that what's shocking is that the incident was never investigated, none of my crew were ever questioned, tapes were never taken, and after a couple of days, it turned into a great story to tell friends. And this is the Tic Tac video guy. So it wasn't until... So his experience happened in, 2004?
Yeah.
So it wasn't until 2009 that he was contacted by someone who is a part of the DoD to actually investigate this further. So it sat dormant for 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that what he said, though, after a few days, it just became like a story to tell among friends. Mm-hmm. That's like so accurate to how, like, if you have a spooky experience, after a while, there's like nothing you can really do about it. You just kind of talk about it sometimes.
Well, yeah, and like, I mean, especially when you don't have someone else to like keep you going. Like, if I was to tell you something and you'd be like, oh, you should look into this, or oh, really? That could be a sign of this. The story ends with you.
Yeah.
Should we get into the trial now?
Okay.
We've talked about the testimonies a bit. We've talked about the people.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So let's start with Ryan Graves and what he said. Ryan Graves claims that the UAP sightings are routine and that many military and commercial pilots have witnessed them. He says that in 2018, his crew detected numerous UAPs on radar when they upgraded their systems, as did other crews when they upgraded as well. Mm-hmm. So they even saw one, which was a dark cube inside of a clear sphere that was about 5 to 15 feet in diameter with no obvious propulsion system. And this, like, design, I guess, of the UAPs is pretty common. It's like a lot of his reports specifically from his witnesses were this specific design.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever really heard of squares until this hearing.
I agree, yeah. This is not like something that
is common.
It's common in my view of it, but maybe they're like specific ones because they're like pilots.
Yeah, and if my information is right, he also worked over a body of water, like Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
So it could be also that water made them, or that the water has something to do with their shape. No, that doesn't make sense, because the Tic Tacs were also over water.
But we don't know that they were always over water.
Oh, that's true, actually. They were just skimming around the water. But he did... Okay, well, that's fair enough. One of the sightings where he talks about that was in 2014. And I believe there was a training session that was going on, which would mean that they're expecting the area, like the perimeter of the training session, to be clear of any other air traffic. So I'm assuming that there's a certain GPS point at a set altitude that all planes that will be in this training session have to pass through to sort of signify, yes, I'm in the training session and I'm like ready to go.
Right.
That's my understanding of this one single GPS point that they mentioned.
Okay.
So there's 2 jets that were going to be doing this training session together. I'm honestly not sure if he was in one of them, but I believe he is, because in another interview later, he stated that it was a first-hand witness, and a first-hand witness can only be happened if you're, like, in
first-hand.
Yeah. Right? So I'm not positive on that one. But the jets were only about 100 feet apart, so they were pretty darn close, and they were just about to enter this GPS point so they could start training when I believe it was like right in the point, they saw this cube and had to do an evasive maneuver to get around the cube, and they reported back that they saw this and the mission was canceled, and they returned to base to regroup and talk about what they just saw.
Okay.
So they did submit a report, but apparently it was never officially acknowledged. And then he states that they continue to try and catch these things on radar until eventually he received an email from his boss that they might have to shut down this training area because they've had multiple near mid-air collisions with UAPs. So he corresponded with his boss, and I'm assuming that they saved them somewhere or submitted them somewhere, because later he says that the next day this correspondence had disappeared and the airspace continued to be open with many sightings and more midair near collisions.
Whoa.
Yeah, this was in his testimony.
That's crazy. Okay.
I know.
I don't think he said that during
the actual trial.
Yeah, because that's wild. So, a lot of the reports claim that the UAPs were observed doing things that are impossible with our current technology.
True.
Like hovering in a hurricane and reaching supersonic speeds immediately and with no sound.
Mm-hmm.
And a human could not survive the G-forces involved in this, so there's no way that a human was on board that ship. He also talked about another sighting of a UAP that was sighted by a team over the water. So he says that it was about the size of a football field.
Which is huge.
Yeah, and it was the same kind of cube-like structure inside of a clear sphere, except the cube was red, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it approached the airbase from the ocean, and it hovered there for 45 seconds before taking off over the mountains. And apparently it happened, like, similarly again later on in the day as well, but he didn't really elaborate on it.
I think he said that this one happened like in the morning, like the first one, like maybe breakfast time, and then the second one happened sometime after dinner.
Yeah. So that's weird because it's like, I know that he's a Navy pilot, so it makes sense that a lot of his reports would be from the water because a lot of his witnesses are probably also in the Navy. But it's still weird that the UAPs seem to like the water so much. Like, why do they like the ocean? What is going on with the ocean that we've only explored like a fraction of?
I mean, do you remember how NASA originally started exploring the ocean and then promptly stopped?
I don't know, guys. I would too, promptly stop.
Right?
It's scary.
Mr. Graves also mentioned that this continued to happen a little bit longer until there was a report that from a couple of like the guards that they were showing signs of hostility, like they were charging at the guards and then quickly disappearing.
Yeah.
Right?
And I wasn't sure because he didn't really elaborate on that either. So I wasn't sure if like these ones were the size of football fields or if they were like human sized, because it didn't really make sense that they would be like
gigantic football sized cubes and these guards standing outside like, you're not getting it. I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly. That didn't make sense to me. So it's like I wish he had the time to elaborate on that.
Mm-hmm. I really hope there's another hearing, and I think that there will be.
I think that there will be many. I think there has to be.
To continue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
That's all I have on him.
Okay.
Now
Grush.
David Grush. So just to go into this, he prefers the term non-human over extraterrestrial or alien, as he wants to keep an open mind on their specific origin.
Which I like.
Yes.
Respectful.
So he decided to whistleblow in May of 2022 because many of his colleagues were expressing concern that the government was not being transparent, because again, he was in the UAP task force.
One of the things that happened during his time there was he found out that, so first of all, the UAP task force, they were given a hard time. Like, he gave the idea that it was hard for them to get to certain data. Like, he really had to prod whatever department he was trying to get the data from for them to actually give it to him. And then he also said that I think it was maybe that at some point someone somehow it became on his radar that there might have been a secret UAP task, like a secret crash retrieval program.
Right, yeah.
That he did not know about. And when he asked for access, they didn't give it to him.
Yes.
Access to the records.
His information is not firsthand. He hasn't had any firsthand experience with the UAPs or whatever. What is it? IHOs?
NHIs?
NHIs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Inhuman organisms.
It makes sense. Yeah, he hasn't had firsthand experience.
It's odd though that, so he doesn't say that he has firsthand experience, but also he says that he knows that there are like pilots, for example. Yes. Which, how would he know if he hasn't seen them?
So he claims that he knows exact locations and exact names of people and organizations involved in this. And he claims that he knows this because he has interviewed over the last 4 years a lot of the people involved in these. 40 witnesses he has.
Which is a lot.
It's a lot, yeah. So he believes that the government has non-human spacecraft. And he claims, again, that he knows the exact locations. He can't tell the public, but he could do that, like, maybe in a skiff. Or hopefully, eventually, it comes forward. But he claims that he knows that. And he also claims that he has faced both professional and personal retaliation since coming forward with this information. And that many others with the knowledge have been physically harmed.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was also interesting that I think it kind of maybe got a little muddled at points, because they were like, have people been physically harmed as a direct reflection of sharing this information? He said yes. And then he didn't really say yes. He probably said something like, well, as I've alluded to, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But, and then they would say like, and has, to your knowledge, have people ever been harmed by the UAPs? And he would also say yes.
He was not able to clarify, and it was asked if it went as far as murder.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And I feel like, if they say, well, have people been murdered? And he says, I can't say that. It means like yes. Because otherwise he'd be able to say no, right?
I mean.
So he claims that it was that could have happened from the UAPs, but also that it could have been the government doing this. The government. I need like a tinfoil hat.
It's the government.
And he did say that he personally has feared for his life since he's come forward, which I feel like also adds credibility, because why would you, like, he feels, a duty to do this, obviously, because otherwise you wouldn't take that risk, because it's not worth it. It's too dangerous.
Totally.
Especially because his wife is also somehow involved in this.
Exactly.
Yeah. He also claims that these secret programs, these crash retrieval programs, are being funded by a misappropriation of funds. Like money that's supposed to go to something else going to these secret programs. And he also claims that corporations are overcharging for certain things that they sell to the government, and that extra money goes to the secret programs. He knows the name of the corporations, but he can't tell us.
Yeah. Can't tell a general public.
So, he also claims that there are satellite images of UAPs, but can't, for some reason, I don't know why, he can't discuss if this also includes the crash sites.
I mean, that probably is to do something with satellite, that those specific satellites might be classified because they don't want other governments to know what sort of satellite imagery we have.
That's true. That makes sense. I didn't think about that, but that makes sense. He also can't discuss if there are currently continuous disinformation campaigns by the government to deny UAPs, but again, that's implied that it's a yes, there are disinformation campaigns.
Yeah.
He believes that the government has known about non-human intelligence since the 1930s, which is interesting to me because Roswell happened, I believe, in 1947, and that kind of seems like the catalyst or like the Kickstarter to all of these
Other.
Yeah. Like that seems like the thing that started it all.
Yeah.
But the 1930s, they've known about this. He also claims that some of his witnesses were physically injured by the UAPs, like we talked about, but I feel like that's crazy. But they're also like reverse engineering the technology, theoretically. That's one of the things that's one of the secret programs.
True.
So like if they do something wrong, if it's just a spacecraft and technology and not like intelligent itself,
That's true.
it could like retaliate automatically.
Oh, that's actually a really good point. Like a safety feature or something.
He claims that they have intact spacecraft and physical non-human bodies, or non-human biologics that were recovered from the crash sites.
Isn't that an interesting way to say that?
Yeah, and he also claims that he can't discuss whether the government has made contact with intelligent non-human life forms. So it's like, so they were probably dead when they were retrieved from the crash site, but the fact that he can't discuss whether they've had actual contact with them makes me think that they have.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he'd say, I don't know, or no.
Not to my knowledge. Yeah.
Basically, he's saying the government has aliens.
Pretty much.
In some capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like his whole whistle. It's like funds, look at the funds, but also we have aliens.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
It is crazy. And he also makes it seem like I got the impression from a lot of things that he said that he really genuinely doesn't understand why there's not certain evidence that's not out in the public.
Yeah.
And like he might be frustrated by that, which is unfortunate.
It's really
It's
wild.
weird.
It's weird to think that somewhere there is an alien currently, live or dead, on this planet.
I do also want to mention that Mr. Grush was super open to telling people things in the skiff.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there were so many things that he was like, I can't tell you here, but I'll tell you in the skiff.
Yeah.
Which was like, oh, okay.
He was
big
like,
information you're going to tell them in private.
there was one person that asked for a list of names, and he was like, yeah, I can get that to you after this meeting. I wonder if she ever got it.
I have information on that.
Oh my gosh, okay. Well, let's talk about, do you have any more on David Grush, or should we?
I don't think specifically, no. I think we can move on.
We'll move on to David Fravor. So, he was in charge of a squadron in 2004 near California, and one day they set off for training, but were instead instructed to approach a UAP. And for over 2 weeks, these UAPs had been coming down from 80,000 feet, which is space, that's space, hovering at 20,000 feet for hours and then going back up. So when they arrived at the location, they noticed a disturbance in the water below them. And when they looked down, they saw a 40-foot large tic-tac-like object moving quickly across the water like a ping pong ball, like not straight, just like kind of bouncing back and forth, skimming along the water. He said that there were no obvious propulsion systems, and he also said that it seemed aware of them. I don't know how he knew this, but it seemed like it was aware of them, and that when they flew lower to get a better look, it took off kind of like towards them, and then like in front of them, and then way up above them.
Yeah. But it like darted.
Yeah, like it was quick.
Yeah, so afterwards, the air commanding station that has other radar said that it moved 60 miles an hour in under a minute.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. So when they looked down, the disturbance in the water was gone. He believes they wouldn't have been able to shoot it down even if they had been armed with advanced weaponry. Like, he doesn't think that they would have been physically capable of doing that. He also believes that the TikTok, oh my god. The Tic Tac defied the laws of physics as we know them. And he believes that the UAPs could be a threat because the technology was obviously better than what we have, and reverse engineering it could be dangerous. He also believes that there could have been a object under the water. Like, he doesn't believe that the Tic Tac was causing the disturbance in the water. He believes that there was something else there, and that maybe they were communicating.
So this might be in his testimony, he said that at the time that the reason why they went out to the point in the first place was because apparently on this specific radar system that the commander had, or the air commander had, on the ground, they had shown something on radar for the past 2 weeks, and so they were supposed to go out there and check it out. And once they got there, they were looking around, and on his right, they saw that there was some white water.
Yeah.
White water only happens when there's a disturbance, like waves. But he noticed that the day was calm, like it was not breezy, and there was no white water anywhere else. This also could have been explained by like a whale jumping. However, I don't think so. Because the way that I'm assuming they saw it was like a large patch of white water, more than just a whale jumping, or even a bunch of whales jumping. And I'm assuming that even though they're flying at like higher speeds, I just assume that they would have, I don't know. I just don't think it's well. I don't know how to articulate that I don't think that it was a fish.
I agree with that, though, because they noticed the disturbance. It seemed to me that they noticed the disturbance in the water before they noticed the Tic Tac hovering above it.
Totally.
So it's like it must have been a pretty substantial thing.
Yeah.
When you're that high, even a whale jumping wouldn't be that noticeable.
Exactly.
The crew also had problems with their radar being jammed afterwards.
That seems to happen.
It seems to happen. I wonder why. The Tic Tac incident is largely regarded as the most credible piece of UAP existence ever. Which is probably why David Fravor was there that day.
Yeah. He was questioned on how he could like really tell that it didn't have wings or propulsion. And he could tell pretty easily because he got within half a mile of the thing. So while he was about 3,000 feet above it in altitude, it was only about half a mile in front of him. And apparently, to pilots, that's very close.
Yeah.
You don't usually get that close to other things in the air. He got a really good look at it. Like, he was very close. And then he also said that, as you mentioned, the thing quickly darted off. And he said that it was around this point that he, like, after it darted off and he got confirmation from the other partner jet that they could no longer see it, or that they had not even noticed it darting off. I'm not quite sure about that one. They immediately looked at the water, and the water was still. Yeah. Again.
Like, the thing that they were communicating with was gone.
Yeah. I don't know if it was really still, but it wasn't white water, at least. Yeah. So I guess when they came back, because after that, they didn't follow it. But I have that after they came back, there was a second crew that was just beginning to, like, they were just finishing up, ready to launch. And I have that this is the crew that took the video.
Okay.
On their systems.
Right. So all three men agree that these UAPs could be looking for information on us and our technology, and that they could be a threat, and that we can't defend ourselves from them if necessary. I want to say that from what we know, I know that there's more that we don't know, but from what we know, it doesn't seem that they're that interested in harming us, because I believe that if they were really wanting to, they could. Easily. So it's like they don't seem interested in doing that. So don't freak out. Don't be scared of this. This is
not doom and gloom. No. This is just information. It can be unsettling, but like it's not end of the world.
No, it's just new information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that's like pretty much everything I have.
Okay. So I just have a few points then to bring up from the hearing, and then I will get into some interviews from after the hearing.
Okay.
So these are just points that I don't know why, but they really stood out to me, and I wanted to note them down and talk about them.
Okay.
So you mentioned this earlier, so I'm sorry, I'm going to say it again. Congresswoman Luna asked, and I paraphrase, with the FAA, are commercial pilots receiving cease and desists from corporations for coming forward with info in regards to safety for potential airline passengers? And then Mr. Graves responded with essentially, I've spoken to some of these pilots that have received such letters. And I don't know why, but this was the first set of chills that I got from all of this stuff, because I just immediately was like, I don't know why, and I'm not trying to start anything, but it really made me think of MH370 because it disappeared over the water. And we're talking about water. It's all this stuff about water. And I was like, oh, I don't know why, but it really gave me chills.
Yeah.
So there's so many planes that go missing over water, or that bad things happen to over water. And I mean, obviously, there's just lots of things that can go wrong on a plane because there's millions of parts. There's also lots of dangerous things above the water. This is just another one.
That's really scary. I didn't think about that, but you're right.
Me neither. And it struck me how she phrased it too, where she phrased it for airline passengers. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Like literally airline passengers and like airline crews too. You know, these are the people that are being affected, not the government. The FAA, by keeping this information, the FAA is also the people that go and investigate crashes. They have a crash investigation team. So they're the people that determine at the end of it, like, why this plane crashed.
Right.
Which, if they're withholding this information, that's so not cool.
No. People deserve to know that.
Totally. So rude. I have more points on that in a minute.
Okay.
I'm going to talk quite a bit about Congressman, I think it's Burchett? I think it's Burchett, though. I'm not sure. I'm really sorry, Congressman. I really like your name. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It was said often enough that I should, but I'm just really sorry.
I think it was like a Burchett.
Maybe it's Burchett. Oh, that's good. I like that. Burchett. Okay. So Congressman Burchett, he said the following. He said that 1, the Pentagon is audited every year and continues to fail. 2, it's estimated they have quote unquote lost over $1 billion per year. So Congressman Burchett also said that he's been, like, before he said these points, he said that he's been in this position for 5 years. So in the past 5 years, as according to his testimony, these are the things that he's witnessed. So at least $5 billion they have lost over the past 5 years. And then he also said that potentially up to 60% of their assets are unaccounted for. This probably contributes to why the Pentagon did not love this portrayal of them, because it's not great.
It's not great.
It's really not the best. They also did mention both the Roswell incident and the Grimble incident.
Right.
And while I remembered the Grimble incident, I don't fully remember it, and I did not have time to reacquaint myself with it. But it's one of the other crash ones, I believe.
I don't think I've heard of that.
Or peace ones. I've watched something on it or something, because it was a big one. It was another big one like Roswell, I'm pretty sure. So them even just bringing it up brings more credit to these things being actually real events that happened.
Right.
Which was just really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm nearing my points from the trial, because the majority of the trial was them reiterating their experiences, talking about pilot stigma, and Mr. Grush specifically saying that he would be happy to tell the Congress people this in the skiff.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that going on. Obviously, there's other things, and it was very interesting. So if you have like 3 hours, you should go listen to it.
Yeah.
And watch it. Yeah. So, but my last point on the hearing is that to the end of the hearing, I think this was the last congressman to speak. His name is Congressman Ogle. He spoke very clearly to send out a message, and he stated that he would personally enact the Holman Rule should Congress be denied access to the skiff. The Holman Rule is a rule which would reduce salaries or fire or cut any program that directly resulted in their denial. So anyone that stood in the way of the Congress people getting to the skiff would suffer consequences.
Whoa.
As per the Holman rule.
They can do that? That's crazy.
I didn't know that either, but like it's real serious.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and he said that. That was his closing argument at the end of his time.
Wow.
Yeah. And then he stated, he also said things like, this is super important for not just the states. I'm not sure exactly the words that he said, but if I'm remembering correctly, he mentioned this is very important for the people and also for the government.
Yeah.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Wow.
Yeah, he's very serious.
Yeah.
Which was really good. Yeah, that's all I have on the hearing. So if you haven't heard these things, when I'm like listening to things during research time, I don't usually audibly react. Like I don't usually go or I don't make sounds usually. Even if something shocking happens, I'm usually it's inward.
Yeah.
That didn't happen with this because I was really shocked with a couple things and I kept saying like, no, stop.
Really?
Or like gasping.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah, it was to the point that my partner, I like scared him a little bit because I did that and I don't think he knew I was home because he thought I'd already come here with you. And I made that and he like tiptoed into the room where I was and was like, are you okay? You scared me. I didn't think you were scared. Okay, so there are a couple of interviews that I saw from after the hearing ended. And I don't exactly know like how far after the hearing this was. I'm assuming it was at least a couple hours, if not a couple days.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure. I'm also not positive if this was like every member of the Congress or just 3, or if just 3 members of the Congress requested skiffs.
Okay.
Or if they all did, like I'm not 100% sure about that stuff.
Like if it was one-on-one or like all of them?
So what happened was they were denied access to the skiffs by the military. The military said no.
The military?
Yes,
okay.
But I'm not, then they mentioned that it was the 3 congressmen that were denied access. So I'm not sure if like everyone requested a skiff meeting or if it was just these 3 people that requested the skiff meeting. Or, like, I'm not sure if they discriminated against these 3 people or if the 3 people were it and they just were like, no.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
It's either, like, the group as a whole and they were like, you 3, no. Or it's just the 3 people make up the entire group that wanted a skiff.
Okay.
And they were like, yeah, no. Anyways, they were denied the skiff by the military. So I'm not sure what the repercussions of that are going to be because Congressman Ogle said that he would enact the Holman rule. So I'm expecting we might see that coming in the future. But also it's the military. Can you cut a program that is the military? I kind of don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think that one might be exempt. As I previously just mentioned, I'm going to be talking about Congressman Burchett. In a response to the financial aspects of corporations and their interest, and how important getting their names are, this struck me. Congressman Burchett said, "That's why we want to get them in the skiff and get some of these names if these people can stay healthy."
I missed that. I was watching it on 1.5 speed, so there are things that I might have missed. I missed
This
that.
was after the hearing.
Oh, this was...
These are, all of this now is like interviews afterwards, not during the hearing. But this struck me because he's kind of alluding to the idea that he knows that these people are in danger.
Yeah.
Like, if they can stay alive long enough for us to get the skiff, then yeah, I'm going to get these names. Not as in a threat. I really think he wants to help. I'm not trying to start anything against Congressman Burchett because I really think he's a great person. But, like, it just shows that everyone knows that how dangerous all of this is, that what these 3 people are doing.
Yeah. Whoa.
Do you want me to read it again?
Yeah, do it.
It's really scary.
Okay.
That's why we want to get them in the skiff and get some of these names if these people can stay healthy.
That is like such an old man way of saying, I don't want them to die. They're gonna die.
Though? It's so true. I think all of my points are going to blow your mind, so let me know when you're ready.
Okay, I'm so ready. I'll stop interrupting.
Okay, so don't worry about it. You can interrupt all you want. Same with you. So this conversation continues, right? So I don't believe any of them said this, but I'm going to just interject it so that it's more streamlined. So why are these names so important? And Congressman Burchett said, because they're the UAP technologies would end the wars and quote unquote put the war pigs out of business.
Whoa.
And there's a saying that wars propel economy. And there's a lot of corporations that invest in wars. And I mean, not that this is necessarily proven because I don't know enough about this, but I've been watching a lot of terrorism documentaries lately. And there's a lot of weapons that are exported out of many countries to other countries for the purpose of war. And there's a lot of money in exporting weapons, which means that all of that money would now be lost.
Okay.
So that's a potential reason as to why there are potentially some big companies giving out cease and desist letters to pilots saying you better not report this because we don't want an investigation on this. You also better not say our names because we can't be tied into this.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's so
Doesn't
insidious.
it though? Doesn't it though?
Like, that's evil.
I know. Up until he said this, the whole time I was like, why are you talking about corporations? Like, what kind of corporations? I don't understand why, like, big pharma? I don't know.
Yeah.
What is this? Yeah, it's all for war. Because there's a lot of money.
Whoa, because...
So it's all greed.
Some corporations would rather people die in wars brutally, killing each other. Mm-hmm. And, like, thousands more injured mentally and physically than to have the betterment of humans through the power of UAP technology.
Yeah. It's either the betterment of humans through the power of UAP technology or the betterment of humans because wars end because there's no point. Now there's
aliens exist.
Like, literally now there's this giant red cube that can just shoot you in a millisecond and your entire fleet is gone.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Like, what are you gonna do? What's the point of you fighting anyone now? It's all gone.
Whoa, I didn't even think about that. Like, the governments could use, like, the UAP technology to basically, like, have dominion over their people. They could just completely control
If they could get it.
That's scary.
Or it also could be the aliens, like, being like, stop this. Stop fighting, children. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it could just be like the UAPs.
Stage.
You need to learn to get along.
Let me zap you real quick.
Do that again, I'll take away your other toys.
Your other guns.
Your other guns. All of these things pretty much are from Congressman Burchett, so I'm not going to necessarily say his name anymore.
Okay.
Later on, or at some point in an interview, he had said that originally, get this. You ready?
I don't know. Am I ready?
Originally, there were 6 witnesses meant to testify.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
But then 3 of them, he said, were torn down until they backed out. It wasn't in this interview that he mentioned anything about, like, it was in another interview with a different journalist where he kind of said, yeah, you know, some people do things in private when they think that no one's watching. And he didn't necessarily, like, direct it at this, but that's the feeling that I got from what he said, is that he might have been directing it towards this, as in they were blackmailed to step down. Not all of them,
right?
Potentially, maybe not even any of them, but it's possible that blackmail could have been a factor as to why why they ultimately backed out of this hearing. Right. That or threats or all of those things.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I really wonder who the other 3 people were.
I hope that they come forward, especially now that it's out there that there were 3 additional people.
I honestly think that the safest thing for them physically would be to come forward.
I would agree.
If their names are out there, they can't be taken out because we would all know. We would all know.
Literally, the entire public.
Yeah. Whereas, like, now, if their names get to the wrong people, they could be hurt before they get to the chance to speak.
I also really, actually, now that I'm just thinking about it, I also really hope that their names were given to a trusted member of the Congress or something beforehand. Otherwise, fakes could be planted in their place.
Ew. Ugh. That's so scary.
Right?
Yeah, to, like, disinformation campaigns. Yeah.
Yeah, disinformation campaigns or... now that there's an opening, they could get rid of them. I don't know. I just wasn't thinking about that, but yeah. So I think it might have been in this same, like, press media conference. So originally it was said, he mentioned these 6 people originally in this media conference that was held before the hearing was held. And it was in this, I believe it was in the same media conference that Congressman Burchett said something like, come to the hearing and report on it because we need to get this out. The public needs to know. And one of the journalists said, or the reporter said, do you know that your hearing room is like very small? As in like not all of us can fit in your hearing room? And that it's under construction? So the way that it sounded to me was that all of the congressmen were under the impression they were getting the biggest conference room in the conference center.
Yeah, because this is the biggest news that has ever happened.
Mm-hmm. So after this media conference or meeting, whatever, they went to check where the meeting was being held. It was being held in one of the smallest rooms that was currently under construction, which they didn't mention this, but now it's not secure because it's under construction, obviously. So there's holes in the walls, I'm assuming, and now there's more sound that can get out. And 2, it's even smaller because it's under construction.
That's so weird.
So, like, it's total sabotage from someone. And after this was found out, they quickly fixed it and were moved back to a larger conference room.
That's so weird.
It's just, like, petty. Like, did you really think no one would, like, make a fuss over this silly room? Like, what happened there?
Did you think no press were going to be interested in this?
Yeah, exactly. Like, hello.
That's so weird.
Another interview, he said that apparently there's a law. So when a pilot reports something to the FAA, something of, like, a mysterious in nature, perhaps, by law, the FAA is required to report it back to the Congress. But this law apparently has been blocked by the intelligence community. I don't know what the intelligence community is, but it's like it's another government body somewhere.
Okay.
So another government body blocked this law from happening. So there's 2 government bodies that have blocked the flow of information to get from source, whatever, the original source, to the Congress for them to deal with it or to take it forward or do something with it.
Okay.
And he also said his specific words were in this interview, it makes you wonder who the hell is in control. Because Congress, I guess, no one's supposed to mess with Congress. He made it sound like no one can do this. Like, this is a law. You don't have the right to block this law from happening.
Yeah.
And they did.
That's really weird.
That is, right?
Feels really weird.
It does. So this is another thing. Okay, this is kind of my last sort of thing that made my mind be blown. And then I think I have, I'd like to tell you what my theory kind of is. Or maybe I'd like to ask you some questions and then tell you what my theory is.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay.
Yes.
Apparently, there was another journalist who did their digging. They did a lot of digging, and they found out that there are 45 incidents in Russia where Russia either interacted with or shot at UAPs. 45 incidents. Uh-huh.
That's just ones that we know about.
That's just the ones that this one journalist could find.
Wow.
After these 45 incidents of potentially shooting, somewhere in the chain of command, an advisory to not shoot was sent out. And it said, and it's advisory to not shoot as they have incredible capacity for retaliation.
Ooh, I got shivers.
Yeah, right? And I didn't write this down, but I did hear that there was a suspicion that at least one Russian plane was shot down by one of the UAPs in retaliation, and that was why they were like, yeah, no, we do not engage.
That's crazy.
But also, 45 times of potentially shooting for the one time.
I mean, yeah, I'd get mad too. You shot me 45 times.
Dude, stop.
Stop.
Stop that. Also in Russia, this one is really frightening, actually. I didn't write this down because I was, losing my marbles over this whole section. So, in Russia, these same things that were, around their thing that they were shooting at and all this stuff, one of Russia's nuclear missile bases, this thing just, after this incident, hovered over top of it and apparently took control of their nuclear missile systems, aimed it at the US. They punched in all of the codes. They overrode all of the codes to point it at the US and set them to fire. They entered the launch codes somehow, or they overrode the launch codes. And just as quickly as they got into the system, like, according to this, you know, I don't know how fast it happened, but according to this, before anyone could even do anything, like, they couldn't do anything because they were just already in and it was already set. And as soon as they got in, they just stopped everything and shut it off, which I don't know if there's actually an override code once you set a missile to launch. Like, I don't know if there's, like, a stop button.
Like an abort mission?
Yeah. I'm not sure. But they very shortly after stopped it and, like, flew away. Like, immediately. Like, they were just gone. And,
oh my gosh.
I also didn't write this down because I was scared, but there was a similar incident in the US where UAPs were seen hovering over nuclear bases or missile bases, and one of them, I think they took control of the systems and just locked everyone out and, like, shut it down. Like, no one could get access to the systems, and once it left, access came back. But they lost control of their end of the world missile bases.
That is so
You weren't prepared
scary.
for this when you said you could do
So
this. It's okay, we live in Canada. No, I'm kidding.
We're not affected by this.
We'll be fine.
That is so scary.
Yeah, so I also didn't do this research. Like, I did not find out about this until, like, 3 o'clock today.
Oh.
This after the hearing, like, stuff. So that's what I was doing. I want to do more research into these articles. And specifically what happened in the US. Because, like, that's not really okay. I mean, like, it's bad enough that people have control over these things. But, like, if there's potentially UAPs that have control over these things.
Yeah. Okay, this is scary for so many reasons. It feels like they were basically, like, taunting us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could do it. Like, I could just launch these.
For Russia, for sure.
I could, like...
They like, said it. They pressed go on the, like, launch. Like, Russia thought
true,
that it was going to launch at the US. Like, the countdown had started.
If this is true,
I
this
know.
is, like, the scariest thing I've ever heard. Because, like, the way that they could just do that if they wanted to. And that they maybe weren't going to, but they can. Mm-hmm. And they wanted us to know that they can. Why?
Because Russia shot at them 45 times.
Russia was like, screw you.
They were like, stop it, Russia.
I'm going to do it, I swear to God. I'll turn this car right around. Blow up your whole planet. Okay, yeah. That is, like, the best argument against having nuclear weapons existing ever.
I agree.
We don't need them. We shouldn't have them. This is not a thing that should be a thing that people can do. People are not qualified for this. Mm-mm. Does Russia, do you think that, like, okay, so
yeah,
if the US has aliens,
yes,
other countries must have aliens also.
So there was talk in one of the News Nation things that potentially there was worries that Russia and China are the other two big, like, military or nuclear, I don't know, entities.
Okay.
There's the US, Russia, and China is what they mentioned. And they were talking about, like, they also have to be having encounters with these things if we're having encounters with these things. So how are their encounters? And are they potentially making deals with these aliens? And maybe could they potentially be working together on these things? Where are we going with that? What did you ask me? I've totally forgotten.
Do they have aliens?
Do they have aliens? Yeah. So yes, they do. They have to have aliens if we have aliens.
Okay.
But to what extent they have aliens, I mean, 45 shots is a lot of shots.
Yeah, because, like, 45 shots, does that mean that they've shot one down? Or does 45 shots mean that there's no way the aliens are going to go there?
I'm kind of assuming that 45 shots means that their squadron, whatever was out at the time, saw one and decided to shoot collectively. However many times they shot counts as, like, one time of shooting. That's how I assume that it was.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that's correct, though.
Right.
Unless it was just always, like, a number of aircrafts, and they actually genuinely counted how many bullets or whatever left the things.
Right, so it was 45 incidents, not 45 shots.
I don't know. They called
Well,
it
that makes
shots,
sense.
but I assumed that it was incidents.
That makes sense.
Incidences of shooting.
It's frustrating not knowing, and I know that eventually we're gonna know, or I believe that eventually we're gonna know, and probably soon, the way that things are going. But, like, it's scary how things could quickly go wrong. But also it's, like, enlightening, it's hopeful how things could quickly go right.
Yeah,
Also.
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
I do agree with that. Okay, well, I have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
So there were a couple words that were brought out in some interviews, and one question that I'm stealing from Mile Higher because I thought it was interesting.
Okay.
So, what do you think about interdimensional aliens?
I think that it's a possibility, maybe even a probability if we consider the amount of civilizations. One of them's got to be interdimensional.
True,
Bigfoot
right?
might be, and he lives on Earth.
True.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Is that what
Okay.
you think? What
Yeah.
do you think?
I agree. I don't have any reason to not believe that that could be a possibility. You know?
Yeah. It's hard to comprehend. It's hard to comprehend all of this, and that's, like, even harder to comprehend. But, like, it makes sense that would be the case.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what? I'm gonna move on. Sorry.
I also want to clarify, I don't know anything about anything. I don't know
Me
what
neither.
that really even means, but yes.
I don't know anything about anything either.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, what are your thoughts that some NHIs could be malevolent?
I think it makes sense that at least some of them are. I hope it's not the majority, and I hope it's not the powerful ones. But I think that, you know, I don't think that they're like a monolith. A lot of humans are malevolent. And I think
That's a good point, actually.
Yeah, like even among the species, there might be certain members of the species that are malevolent and others that are not. And we just gotta hope that the ones that are malevolent aren't in charge, right?
That's a good point. That's
Yeah.
true. That's true. That they don't have the overwhelming power.
I do kind of think that the ones that have been here can't be all that malevolent because they haven't killed us yet. As far as we know, they haven't seriously harmed most humans.
Well, they haven't destroyed the planet at this point in time.
No.
That's true.
I think that some of them have methods that are harmful to humans, but I don't think that their overall goal is to destroy us.
I don't think... Yeah, I agree. I don't think that I would say... if you want to know my opinion.
I do. What do you think?
Like, I agree, but I also think that for me it's too soon to say if they are or aren't, just because if they're, like, more intellectual, they probably are... I don't know them, but, like, they might step back and take more information in, so they could just be monitoring us to decide how mean they want to be.
That makes sense. Like, they want to know what we are like before they make any moves.
Yeah, what we are like, what we can do, what we can't do.
Whether it's necessary to destroy us or whether it's worthwhile to keep us alive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Which is still malevolent in a way, because it's like...
Yeah, they could possibly.
Yeah.
It's on the table.
It literally, it's like, well, we could, but let's see if
see
it's
how
worth
it
it. Okay. Another question taken from a really great podcast that
Mile
we've mentioned
Higher.
before. You should watch it if you haven't. They talked about this a little bit. So, do you think that it's possible that the ghosts that we are seeing are actually aliens?
Oh my gosh. Shout out to Mile Higher.
That's such a good point. Such a good question.
Yeah, and I don't think that I've thought about it before like that, but it's like, because a lot of the common ghost things are, you know, orbs of light and like physical feelings and like hair standing on the arms and stuff, like things that are also associated with technology and possible alien sightings. So it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and it makes sense that if it's like if you see a ghost and it's like a full body apparition or something, that it would appear as a human, as to not scare us, you know?
True.
Yeah.
That's true.
If that's their goal, because I don't think...
Well, yeah, if that's their goal.
most ghost sightings are not... I don't think most ghost sightings are malevolent, if you think that they're humans. But you might not also think that they're humans. So.
Depends on how much you see.
Yeah.
That's true.
But also there could be, like, many different types of aliens utilizing that technology or appearing in that form. It doesn't have to be just one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
definitely.
That makes sense. What do you think?
I kind of, like, agree.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, my stance on it all is a little, like, on ghosts, essentially. On ghosts specifically is a little, I don't know. Like, I definitely believe that there's something there, but I don't know if I believe exactly. Like, I don't know if I've determined exactly what I believe is there as the ghost.
Yeah.
So, the alien theory, it's more believable to me than a spirit of a past person that's coming back for some reason. Can I tell you my theory?
Yeah.
Okay, so my theory is, I'm not entirely sure how to explain it because I just thought of it when they determined that they changed the wording from aerial to anomaly. So I was like, if you think about it, right? So they've changed the terms aerial to anomaly and alien to UAP or NHI. And to me, the original words aerial and alien both, like, they have the stigma of things that are coming from outside, out of outer space.
Okay.
But by changing the words, and especially using the term non-human, the term non-human makes me feel like you're saying the word human, so you're bringing it closer to us. So essentially, I kind of feel like they maybe are trying to suggest that there are things that actually are from Earth, or are already on Earth, like we've already been saying. They're not coming from outer space anymore, they're now coming from Earth. Like, they're already a part of us. That's why they're changing the terminology to be these things, because these things have the stigma of coming from not Earth, and therefore they wouldn't work for things that are coming from Earth. And it really scared me. But also,
crazy.
The oceans have a play in this somehow.
So the oceans have to be involved.
They have to. There's no chance that they're not involved.
I'm fully on the train of underwater aliens.
Mm-hmm.
I also think, outer space aliens, but I don't think that's all of it.
I agree. Yeah. It just feels like they're changing their whole, like, focus.
Yeah.
And I don't exactly know why, if it's not for the reason that they're already here, or that they found that there are aliens among us. Like, we are part of us are aliens that originated from Earth, and all of these things that we thought were from outer space. Yeah.
Oh my god.
And all these things that we thought were from outer space are actually from us here, that are already aliens, that are just, I don't know, communicating with something. I don't even know exactly.
Okay, so we watched the movie Nope, like, a little while ago.
We did.
And in that movie, the alien, quote unquote, spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Watch
turn
the
this off
movie
if
first.
you haven't seen this.
Yeah.
But the alien is basically an animal that was on Earth. It's not, like, confirmed that it's from out of outer space, but it's an animal.
That's right. It was, like, territorial over the Earth because it was on Earth first.
Yeah, it's like, this is my property. This is my land. I live in the mountains. You are on my property.
Yeah.
It's like, so maybe they're just animals. Maybe they really are just animals. Or, like, technology advanced animals. I don't know. It's like, maybe they were here before, and maybe it's like a Godzilla thing, like,
ooh,
they were living in the Earth, and then when we started messing with it and doing all our, like, climate changey stuff,
yeah, and now there's earthquakes all the time.
Yeah, it, like, woke them up, and they come out and they're like, actually, you guys need to stop because we live here and we own this planet.
That sucks. That would make sense though if sightings only started in, like, 1930. Not sightings, but, like, record of aliens only happened in 1930, because we definitely had the government the way that it was in the US before 1930.
Yeah, and there are, like, sightings and reports of aliens going, like, ancient aliens and stuff, but it's not as common as it is, I think, now. And maybe that was just, like, an outlier, like, something woke up and came up to the surface, but yeah, maybe they just live in the oceans or in the mountains underground, and they were here first.
I really do think it has something to do with the oceans, and I think the orcas have to play into it somehow too. Like, now there's more aliens in the oceans, and that's why the orcas are, like, attacking the ships, because the vibrations or the electromagnetic whatevers are, like, messing with them.
Yeah, or they're communicating with aliens. Maybe the aliens are not interested in us, because whales are supposed to be, like, super smart, right?
They are, and, like, super emotionally intelligent.
Yeah, so maybe the aliens are just like, yeah, humans are an annoyance and they're, like, the loudest people on the planet, but they're not the only people, and they're talking to the whales instead.
Okay, wait. What if That's actually what's happening, right? So the aliens are actually like learning about the whales, and the orcas have like specific squadrons, like a military, that go out to either distract or destroy anyone who gets too close to, like, any people who get too close to finding their whatever, or walking in on their tests.
That makes a lot of sense.
Walking in, as if you can walk in on the water. Bad choice of words.
But that could be it. Like, we are so sure that we are the smart ones, that we are the ones that the aliens are interested in.
We're obviously the best.
Yeah.
You know.
Of course. But it's like, I don't know that we have to be. I think that it would make a lot of sense that the aliens are more interested in the whales.
I would be.
I would be. Are we going crazy?
I don't know.
This has gone off the rails.
I mean, if I saw an alien with, like, a cat or something, I'd definitely be more interested in the cat. Like, their version of a cat. They were just holding something, like spiky in their arms. Oh my but, like, it's treasuring it. Or even if it's growling, but it feels like they're treasuring it. I'd be like,
it's just a hedgehog.
Oh Fun fact, we already have those here.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That was mind-blowing.
That was a lot. Thank you for bearing with me.
That was crazy. Okay.
There's a lot of crazy stuff. We'll have to do another update when NASA comes out with their final report, and depending on what happens with the hearing.
Yeah. Well, there will probably be a lot of updates, and we'll definitely be talking more about aliens in the future, because
they're not going away.
They're not going away, you guys. Oh my gosh. So yeah, aliens probably exist, and they're probably here in some capacity. And
do your own research.
Do your own research. Don't rely on us. We don't know as much as... We didn't even know that the Pentagon was a thing.
I mean, we knew it was a thing. I thought it was more than a building.
I thought it was more than a... Yeah. I thought it was more. It's not more. It's just a building.
It's literally just a building that was named after, apparently, the shape of the building. Like, how lame.
But, yeah. It makes no sense. It's crazy. We're Canadian. Don't blame us.
Well, wow. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
For joining us. This was a really fun one.
This was crazy.
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Follow us on all the things. Weird Things in Wine on pretty much everything. We have a website, weirdthingsinwine.com.
Easy to find. And
yeah, subscribe, follow. I'm not sure what it is on whatever podcast platform you're on, but do that. Like, subscribe.
We're everywhere. If you just Google us. If you just look us up on your preferred platform, we'll probably be there.
Yeah.
If not, let us know, I guess.
Yeah. I'm not using Twitter anymore. Don't know what's going on with that. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, we won't be on Twitter, but find us on anything else.
Yeah. And if you yourself or someone you know has had an encounter with an alien or a UAP, please send us an email at weirdthingsinwine@gmail.com.
We'd really love to hear from you.
We would love to hear from you, and all our links are on our website. So,
yes. Promise we're easy to find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Shadow had to chime in one last time.
That's so cute. Thank you again for listening.
Thank you.
As always, stay weird.
Drink wine.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Stick around for some bloopers and outtakes. Cheers.
Cheers. Okay. Cheers.
Cheers. Sorry. Wait, one more time.
Okay.
Cheers.
No, we are professionals and we're so good at this. Like, I can't even... mind blown. We're so good.
How did we get here? Please reach out to us. Have your publicist call ours. It's just me. No.
It's just me. Oh, I'm so dumb.
What?
I'm like, the Navy has pilots? I thought they were only in the water.
I mean, they are in the water, but they also have aircraft carriers in the water.
Yeah, you're right. Wow, I'm so dumb. Have I always been this way?
No, but did you watch?
No.
No, wait. What is the movie with Tom Cruise that came out recently?
Oh, Top Gun?
Yeah, but the second one. You should.
Is he a Navy pilot? No, he's with the Air Force. No, is he?
I actually don't know if it's the Navy, but they do land on an aircraft carrier in the water. Is everything Navy on the water? Yeah.
I don't know. Does the Air Force have now water also? Because the Navy has spaceships. Airships? No, they're called planes.
Is that the name of the building? Or is that just the name of the proceedings in the building?
It might be because we're dumb. It might not be because we're Canadian. We might
Do
just
not
don't
leave
know.
this in. Don't leave it in. We can't let people know. Okay, I'll leave it up to your discretion if you want to leave it in or not.
That might be a good
It's been like
blooper.
5 minutes of talking about the darn Pentagon with our dumb Canadian nonsense.
We haven't even talked about the aliens. as
Honestly.
relates to the Pentagon. There's
Oh my
probably
goodness.
aliens in the Pentagon. Like, maybe not actively currently right now, because it's probably late there, but, like,
Probably.
at times there probably is aliens.
There has been at least probably one.
There's probably,
once.
yeah, at least one once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Big brain.
Energy right now. It's coming through. One brain cell's here.
And it's here to party.
It's not even here to work. It's just here to mess it all up. Okay.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
What do you think? Because it was mentioned in the. Can you read the question? Sorry. Sorry.
I'm being quizzed.
I like it. Can you use that word in a sentence, please?
Maybe. The way that you fixed your glasses when you said that was so cute.
Was
Oh
it
my
really?
gosh.
Did you really
It was
think so?
adorable.
I didn't even notice it. Oh my gosh, thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. Sheesh. Wow, I gotta compose myself now.
You unscramble it and it's just spelled I am an alien.
We took out all the letters that were duplicates.